For ambitious dads caught between work and home, this is where you find your footing. Here's your host, Jeff Hittner.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Ambitious Dads podcast. I am your host, Jeff Hittner. After more than 200 conversations with fathers, I have realized we are not talking enough, not about our fears, nor our ambitions, nor how our kids are really doing, or how we're holding up in the middle of all of it. This podcast is for the dads trying to build something meaningful and trying to be present at home. The ones carrying a lot, questioning if they're doing enough, and craving honest conversations without the filters. If that's you, you are not alone and you are in the right place. Let's figure this out together. And I am excited today to introduce our guest, Paul Millard. Paul is obviously a father. He is a writer. He is an ex-consultant and an advocate for ditching the default path in favor of what he calls the Pathless Path. Paul walked away from a promising corporate career to pursue a life of writing, experimenting, and global wandering. He writes a lot about unlearning the external definitions of success, why the idea of good work, work that energizes, and is also the title of his newest book, has become his guiding principle, and how his first self-published book, The Pathless Path, unexpectedly earned him significant income. I am really excited to have you on with me today, Paul. I feel like our paths have crossed so many times, and excited to talk about sort of the conversion of fatherhood and the journey that you've been on, which has been kind of a parallel path to mine as well. So welcome.
Yeah, pumped to chat with you, Jeff. I think you're one of my earliest pathless friends. I'm not even sure how. I think we met through Stephen Worley in 2018.
Yes. Yeah, that is correct.
Who's since retired from this entire world, but we're still going.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, what's fun about talking about this too is that we have also, since that time, I mean, how many times have you and I reinvented ourselves? I mean, you know, I'm on my 28th pivot since then, and you have, and we've both built our families since then, which has been amazing. And I have so much to ask you. So first and foremost, maybe, can I ask you a little warm-up question? Because you've written about reclaiming your inner ambition, and, as a dad to a toddler, how old is your daughter right now?
2.5.
2.5. Okay. So what does ambition look like, right? At 6 a.m. or 6:30 or 7 or whenever she gets up and is yelling for daddy, and you haven't had a coffee yet, and maybe, you had a morning plan to do some writing. How does that all reimagine itself for you these days?
Well, it's interesting you're asking about me. I actually thought you were asking about her to start with. And I think young kids are so inspiring in this regard. She is incredibly ambitious, exactly about what she wants to do to the most extreme degree possible, right? So if she wants to dance right now, it is 100%. Everyone will be lining up in the exact way around her, doing the same dance moves. And we are going all out. And there is absolutely no care in the world about what anyone could possibly think of this. And so this is sort of what I'm calling inner ambition, which is just this natural fire that humans have, this curiosity, this energy to just do stuff. You hear music and you want to dance. And so every morning, I'm not really thinking about me, but I watch her and I'm like, wow, that is so pure and beautiful. And that is a really long way to say I don't ever try to accomplish anything in the morning.
So then, so tell me a little bit more about this then, right? So, you're kind of building your life around this idea of leading from this inner fire, right? And not from these external definitions of success, which is a topic that, as you would imagine, has resonated really heavily with a lot of the dads that I work with when we talk about like how they want to raise their kids, and yet they're not really necessarily doing it that much with themselves, right? It's kind of like people who have fallen into the rat race in some respects don't want their kids to feel some of that same emptiness that they feel. Just walk us through your story a little bit, and then maybe how your daughter is now playing a role in that as well.
Yeah, so I think I'm taking the complete opposite approach in terms of not worrying about her, because it just seems silly to worry so much about a 2.5-year-old. It's so obvious to her what she wants to be doing at every minute, and worry about me. And so if I'm actually doing the things I care about, that's going to be a powerful example. Am I going to be able to shape how she enters the world? Maybe, like probably to some degree. At least I can be not a negative influence. And so this has been the whole goal of my path. It's really funny. I'm working on an essay trying to process a lot of what has happened in the last 2.5 years. And it's really cool to have a kid, because before having a kid, everyone was like, well, you can't do this with a kid, right? You can't just like follow work you care about and not worry about money. But hidden behind that was I had met a partner, Angie, my now wife, a year into my path. We both always knew we wanted kids. And we talked all the time about like, what should we be doing with our lives now, given we wanted kids? And the answer for us was not, oh, we should raise capital for this child. It was, oh, we should practice living the lives we actually want and try to do that in as experimental a way as possible. So a feature of not having kids was having a lot more financial flexibility. And so at no point was I like, well, I should try to make more money because I'm going to have kids. It's once I have kids, then that's probably a better time to like worry about money. But in the meantime, I'm going to practice like leaning into creativity, taking risks, like doing all these things. Because once you have kids, you do need a little more money. Just because you're feeding more mouths, you want a little more comfort and safety and security and things like that.
Absolutely. So what you talk about also hits on a important theme that I've heard from not just a lot of dads, but a lot of the research right now, which is just, it's about mirroring, right? So what I hear you saying is that the best way that we can kind of impact our kids is by what they see and do, or what they see us do and act. And I wrote a post recently about, everyone's fear around social media and screens, and recognizing that, the biggest piece of where they're learning all that is that we have our screens in front of us all the time. And, it actually doing the research, because I selfishly do this work. I do this work because it also makes me feel like I'm a better dad. And doing the research, it said something about, the most important times to keep the screens out of like family practices is when you wake up, at mealtime, and going to bed. And I still put both of my kids to bed, even though they're 5 and 8, which I love. And I often have my phone with me. And I read this research about like, that's where they're learning about, that it's okay to have their phones in bed. And obviously, it's like, that's what I'm doing, and I don't want them doing it. So I immediately bought this thing called an itty bitty book light. And I bought the book that I want to read. And now I'm like, reading in the darkness with them. So the whole idea being like, I'm still learning how I need to be the right sort of mirror for them. And it's important. And does your daughter ever call you out on anything in terms of, the way you're maybe going through your day and you don't realize it, or using technology and don't realize it?
Yeah, I watched her the entire day today, and she yelled at me to put my phone down in Chinese. Shoji panzi, daddy shoji panzi. Yeah, I think like, it's not it's kind of she holds herself to a double standard. Like when she has the device, she doesn't want to give it up at all. But when she wants attention, she'll put it down. I think I actually take this a level deeper. I think a big principle I think about with my daughter and our family, we talk about a lot, is just a sense of connection. And so I think about this in all aspects of my life too. And so I use the internet. I try to use it in ways where I actually feel good about it. And so I'm constantly practicing, how do I actually use internet and devices in ways that feel good, feed my creativity, feed my curiosity, help me connect with friends and stuff like that. And so I'm not actually at war with myself. I don't self-shame myself about using the internet. And I really, you should learn to love your use of devices is sort of my radical take. Because what your kids are going to pick up is you're at war with yourself all the time, which means you don't actually care about what you're doing, or you resent, or you're not giving your own self self-love, right? And so I can easily just put my phone down and be okay, I'm not going to beat myself up for using it. It's just I do something, right? I think people are fearing the wrong things, though. I spent so much time on a computer growing up, and almost all the time I'd come home and just use it until I went to sleep. But sometimes I was wasting time, quote unquote, but I was also doing fun stuff, running online basketball leagues, participating in wrestling sim leagues, building websites, screwing around, trying to hack websites, probably illegal stuff now, and trying to make money online, and all these different things. And so there's tons of opportunities to do cool stuff with technology. It's just figuring out how to lean into that. Today I literally spent the entire day with her. She was freaking out when we were in the cab on the way home, and I gave her the device, and it was fine. It helped. We watched Moana. We both sang, and we got home, and she freaked out, but it's fine. She cries for however long it takes. I hold her, let her work through the cry, and let her know it's okay to cry. But I've set the boundary.
So first of all, I want to acknowledge that that's also actually a really difficult skill that a lot of dads are trying to figure out, right? So there's a couple that you brought up. One is
this is what I worked on before I had a kid. I was spending all my time not working, developing emotional resilience, developing capacity. These were conscious skills I thought were more worthwhile than making money.
God, that is I love hearing that, because I worked on that too, and I wrote an article for you, right, for your blog around why I moved to Spain to be a better dad, and a big piece of it was living in the States and the hours required to work to afford a family and school and all those things that we talk about. I didn't have the time to work on myself, and I didn't have the time to kind of work on being the dad that I wanted to be. And then I got this space in Spain where I could suddenly really understand why I was triggered, for instance, by both my boys, emotional meltdowns and tantrums, and what I had to do to grow and be better at managing that. And I only think with the space that I had, because I didn't need to work 60 hours a week, I was able to do that and to grow. And I've spoken with a lot of dads who recognize that they want to make some changes in terms of their emotional regulation and how they're dealing with raising their kids, because we all care so deeply about being better dads and not really knowing how to go about doing that. So you went about doing it explicitly by creating a whole different, path for yourself for how you would live and work. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, and for especially for those of the listeners that don't know much about it?
Yeah. So what happened to me was I quit my job, and quickly I realized I loved free time and loved complete control of my life. And then also I had a lot of interests work wise, which weren't going to pay the bills. And so quickly I leaned in that direction. I lowered my cost of living and started living this weird life. I cut my income by about 80% in 1 year. I did some freelancing in the first year, but within a year, I radically just stopped trying to make money. So I had to cut my cost of living pretty dramatically too. Turns out when you do this in America after being highly successful for 10 years, everyone thinks you're a lunatic. Everyone starts projecting their insecurities onto you, and people criticize you, people insult you, people make fun of you, and you start to feel pretty damn bad for yourself. And so I moved to Asia during the process, and moving to Asia was a way for me to get space and time for myself. And it was fucking painful. It was hard. And I realized what happened was for 10 years on my previous path, I always had this restlessness, this I'm not good enough. I need to prove myself. I need to keep moving. I'm not, or just dissatisfaction in the present. And my process was just to look for the next gig, next job, next grad school, next promotion. And I went through that cycle like crazy. I never stayed in a job for longer than 23 months until my final job. And so I was just relentlessly moving towards the future, marching to the future, all because I didn't want to sit with my emotions. Sitting with my emotions was harder than uprooting my life and going into motion and getting to the next thing. But in today's society, leaving a job early and then going to work at McKinsey and Company looks like success. But underneath, I was running away. I was running away from that first job. I was scared of staying. I felt doomed. I needed to constantly just be moving forward. And so nothing was ever enough. I was always dissatisfied. And so quit my job, become self-employed at the level of this free time. There's nothing to aim at. It's I'm sort of talking to myself and be well, if you love this stuff, you have to deal with the emotions. And so in Taiwan and then over the next coming years, and still this is a practice, right? Why would I be good at handling emotions or processing emotions, right? Kids are good at it, but many of us as kids were told, don't cry. It's okay. You're fine. Don't make a scene. All these things, right? And it's this cycle that repeats endlessly. And so, yes, so much was just sitting with it, working through it, understanding, okay, everyone's projecting their insecurities onto me. Everyone's dealing with this stuff, right? And so work like Johnny Miller, his nervous system mastery, he was one of my first friends on this path. So I soaked up so much wisdom from him, just watching him and what he had gone through on his journey, dealing with the loss of a partner and how he processed that was so inspiring to me in this personal growth angle. Joe Hudson's stuff, Art of Accomplishment, his stuff is so incredible for giving language to understanding this avoidance mechanism. He calls it the golden algorithm. And so I just worked on this. It was an anchor for my relationship, marrying somebody from another culture, living in a different country. We needed these things. And then it turns out having a kid just triggers the hell out of you all the time.
Yes.
But through all that work and that practice, I got to the point where I could be frustrated and triggered and also at the same time be wow, I'm so grateful for this trigger. And so when my daughter's crying coming out of the cab today, I'm just holding her and being okay, nice, another opportunity to practice, right? Coming back to myself, staying with my emotions, my anger, my frustration, wanting to control the situation, and also letting her just cry.
Yeah.
And be it's okay.
One of the interesting things I learned in the programs that I've been leading is not so many dads actually know what being triggered or a trigger actually is. So just for everyone listening, a trigger is when you have an oversized emotional reaction, typically to what someone else does, right? And that
Let's
oversized
just make this
reaction.
make it more granular. When your child is crying and you want them to stop, you've been
Yes.
triggered.
You've been triggered because it's about something in your life that that doesn't still sit well with you, right? That you haven't processed. What I find interesting about what you just talked about too is it sounds like, so please correct me if I'm wrong, that you did a lot of this growth work on your own, right? Through reading and research and books and that sort of thing. Did you also did you have a therapist? Did you have a bunch of people that you also spoke to so the conversation could go back and forth? Did you journal about it all the time? Like, can you talk a little bit more about this process for emotional maturity?
Yeah, I think I've done some practices. I've done a lot of practices with my wife. A lot of that's journaling, talking through things, and using the language of others in a formal way to work through that, right? This is where Joe Hudson's Art of Accomplishment stuff. Angie's done some of the courses, and I've sort of like shadowed what she's been doing as part of the courses as well. And there's these exercises. Like one of them is super powerful. I say, so like, I forget exactly how it is, but you'll say like, yeah, I'm really frustrated. I'm feeling just so exhausted. I feel like I'm not being a good father. And then I would voice back at you, you're frustrated, and that's okay. You're feeling like you're not a good father, and that's okay. Right? And so the point behind that is it's all your feelings are valid. And like this is hard because not all my feelings were valid growing up. And I think that's true for most people. And yeah, I mean, even as I'm like giving a hypothetical example, I'm getting a little emotional because it's like, wow, like just being seen and accepted for what you're feeling is such a powerful thing because few people ever experience that.
I couldn't agree more. I took my son to get a shot the other month. He needs shots for some allergies that he has. And I hadn't taken him. His mom had taken him the last 4 times, and he would come back complaining how much his arm hurt for like 2 days. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take him. And because I was a little bit curious about what was going on, because it was, quote unquote, just a shot in his arm. And he's 8. And so we went there, and the doctor is like super old and the nurse is super old. And as we're leading into giving him the shot, both the doctor and the nurse are like, it's not going to hurt. Just be a big boy. Like, you have courage. You can do it. Like, don't worry. And I'm like, in my head, really quickly, I'm like, this is what's going on. And I literally paused and I said, Riv, anything you're feeling right now is totally okay. And if you want to cry, I would want to cry. Like, I'm sure this is scary and might hurt you either emotionally or physically. So whatever you want is fine.
Yeah.
And literally, he did not. So he cried a little bit and gave me a hug. And then afterwards didn't complain one bit about his arm after that, the way he did for the previous 2 or 3 days, because he had permission. Right. And by the way, most of us, particularly boys, weren't given that permission to have those fearful emotions or to at least share them in certain ways. Women also had certain emotions that they aren't allowed to share as much. Women aren't allowed to share anger as much. And men aren't allowed to share vulnerability as much typically. And so just seeing, like, being sensitive to where this is getting imprinted and being able to like change that storyline for our kids is really, really powerful. And I really appreciate what you said too, because this is also a leadership skill. So when I run leadership development programs, it's also about like the other person needs to feel heard, whether you're giving feedback or just generally acting as a coach or a manager. And what you said is kind of like one of the key starting points is just repeating back to them like what they said and how much that helps them feel heard. In fact, I'm trying to teach that to my boys already, because I feel like what a great skill for an 8-year-old to be able to say, like, Daddy, I hear that you're a little bit upset right now, right? After he does something silly or that sort of thing. So very, very cool. This is great. Tell me a little bit, go ahead.
Well, I think this ties back to the connection thing too, because I've seen this interesting thing with parenting where parents, especially in the US, they're so worried about language, right? And they're not as worried about like what's actually happening in the body, right? They're worried about the rules and the language, right? The rules, like no phones and everyone's scared. But I'm more worried about like, what is my emotional relationship to the phone and like how I'm worried about it, right? And so similar thing with the emotions is parents are like, oh, you can't say to kids anymore, it's okay, right? And I think this is just an instinct, because when your kid falls, you just want to reassure them and help them, right? So I've caught myself saying, oh, it's okay, it's okay. But I think the words probably don't matter as much as how I'm actually dealing with similar things in my life, right? How do I deal with a fall or an injury or something like that? And then even if I say it's okay, do I let her cry? Do I let her be scared, afraid, all these things, right? And yeah, I just think it's so much more about like the deeper connection and practices of these things than a lot of the silly like parenting rules and hacks that people worry so much about.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is it's really like getting beneath kind of the guidelines that are what are being shared around good parenting at the high level, but they don't really get to what we're trying to talk about, which is the word you used, which is connection, right? And connection may be about language, but what it's really about is like seeing your child for where they are in that moment and what's going through them, and trying to just sit with that, which takes a lot of practice. Do you, with your wife, do you guys, this is a hard one, do you guys actually like objectively observe one another when that's going on in the context of your daughter? Or is it more like, hey, you could have done it better this way? Or like, is there any feedback going back and forth between you guys on some of this? Because it sounds like you're learning a lot through not just her, but her cultural sort of way of doing things, which is so distinct. So is there conversation that's directly tied to this with her?
Yeah, I think she had a bit more baggage than me early on. And so sometimes she would get triggered pretty intensely and not know how to react. And so either her say, hey, you need to take over, or I would be like, hey, go take care of yourself. I got this. I think that has happened to me as well when I don't have anything left. I need you. And so when we're saying those things, I think we're pretty aligned. I think we're pretty aligned at like the North Star, which is like we both want to do our best, support each other, believe in each other, trust each other. So I think having that anchor is very powerful. But yeah, it's hard. There are things we both do from our own cultures that make the others uncomfortable. And so she grew up in an East Asian family in Taiwan where like threat and shame is a lot more. Now, she doesn't like that at all. She hated that growing up. But like when you have a kid, it's almost like these old patterns reawaken. They've just been laying dormant, right? Because you haven't parented a child before. So there's all these things you have to deal with that you don't deal with in normal life. And so they've come up for her. And I know at this point, she doesn't want to be that way, right? So she's going to be harder on herself than I will be on her. So I don't add to it, right? I give her space and let her make mistakes. And I think similarly, she lets me make mistakes. And I think that's something we've really developed over the past couple of years, just that trust of, hey, I know you want the best for this. But yeah, I think if like we're getting too frustrated or angry, we both try to like just check out. And so yeah, I don't know how letting your child see anger in a healthy way. I think that's something we need to think through. But probably easier when they're a little older and can sort of understand, because they just get so scared and nervous at a young age.
Oh yeah. It's interesting about the checking out, which I've also used many times. But the other weekend, well, but this is why I want to tell this story, because this past weekend I brought my boys to the pool, and it was a drive. It was like a 30-minute drive to go to this particular pool, and we got there, and I realized my youngest, I didn't pack his bathing suit. My oldest was wearing his bathing suit, my youngest wasn't, and I was like, "There's no way out of this disaster." And I told him. And what proceeded, and he had shorts and underwear, so that was obviously eventually going to be the solution. But what proceeded was, it was a solid 45 minutes of meltdown. And the problem was I had no one to tag out to, no one, because I took them there myself. And so I took my older son into the pool and was like, I'm just going to give him some space. And my younger son proceeded to take our towels and my shoes and throw them in the pool. So it's like, I cannot escape. I literally couldn't escape. I needed to tag out, and there was no tagging out that was possible. Not in the pool, not away from the pool. And this was really hard. And because I knew
How do you
it,
not laugh when he throws your stuff in the pool, though?
I definitely went underwater a couple of times to not laugh, but also to scream. Because I knew I wasn't in the space to do it well. Like, that's also when we're getting emotionally strong as parents. Like, we know if we're in the right headspace. And I knew I wasn't. And yet I had no one to tag out to. And eventually what worked was there was someone else at the pool that I knew. And I just went over to them and had a conversation with them away from the water, because anything he was throwing was in the direction that I was in. So he saw me having a normal conversation, and eventually he calmed down. But it was one of these things where, man, like, if I did have someone else there, for sure it would have been a much easier solution, but it wasn't. And it was just one of those tough parenting moments where, just the other thing, going back to what you said before, like the shame cycle, it was like, I'm not going to hold myself in shame for not doing this well, but I was really bummed because there was really no out for me. Yeah. Yeah. That's one way to put it. Correct.
Kids ever stopped crying completely, it's like, okay, that might be a bigger issue than anything else.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. One of the things that we're working on in our family overall is that there are no bad emotions. They're just emotions, right? And that's also very cultural. And I don't know what it's like from your wife's culture, but in America, generally, negative emotions are not okay emotions, right? And what
you
we're
have
trying
to pretend you're
focus on
happy every day.
Yeah, especially at work in your corporate job.
But the interesting thing about that is, one thing I've really been loving about having a kid is leaning into those positive emotions fully, because I think there's sort of a pseudo happiness in America where like things are good. But truly expressing joy and being absolutely silly is not something people do. And I definitely was practicing that more before having a kid, but now it's every day. We're doing dances, we're singing songs, we're dancing in the park, and I just fully embrace trying to be silly and dancing with her in public and laughing. Man, it's so fun because that processing all the challenging emotions was a huge thing early in my journey, but I was a bit flat. I was a bit scared to go out there in the world and play and have fun and not take myself seriously and even like celebrate some of my success. Some of my success from my first book, I'm 6 years into my path. I didn't properly celebrate anything I did until 2 years after the book was launched, probably.
That's really,
and so
really interesting.
Having a kid is just like an instant portal to expressing all the joy and all the things that come once you've made peace with all your challenging emotions.
So do you think your daughter has actually enhanced your creativity since your work is all around being creative in some respect as a writer?
No, I'm just working way less and I feel like my work's just been worse. Like
Really? Oh, okay. Now I want to know more about this. Okay. Tell me more.
So I hear all these dads that are like, oh, I had a kid and I'm doing better than ever. I don't know. This has not been the case for me. I think this is just a time thing. I'm working way less than I did before I had kids. And so a couple things. One, that was by choice the first year. My book started exploding basically the month before my daughter was born. And so I made in like 6 months enough money to like fund my life for 2 years. And so to me, somebody that just wants to buy as much freedom and time to do whatever the hell I want to do, like I'm cashing that in. I'm not like doubling down on like the success. I'm just like, cash out. We are going to hang out with my daughter. So for the first year, I didn't worry about work or money at all. As I started to go back to work, I still didn't work full time. Angie and I decided to fully take care of our daughter until she was 2. And I started writing a book, but I was writing it in 3 chunks a week. So I was working 3 days a week and Angie was working 2 days a week. And so what it looked like was we both would work till like 3:34. So it'd be like 9 to 3:34. We'd both be around in the mornings and both be around for night. So I was spending a lot of time with my daughter. And what I found was it was actually easier to work when she was under 9 months old. As soon as she like started having a schedule and like had more energy and needed more engagement, I found 9 months to 2 years probably the most challenging period with balancing everything. And so, yeah, my work just wasn't that great. I was force fitting it into these slots, and I'm happy with the second book I produced. But I have the sense that like the work I was doing before I had kid was definitely better. Now I'm finding my groove again. We're getting some more consistent help. Angie's parents are helping us out a lot now. And yeah, I'm starting to feel some of the creative energy come alive again. Now, I think it's easy to like succeed when you're like working in a full-time job and you're doing stuff you're familiar with, but I'm really leaning into this like creative mode where I need time to wander. I need like a week to goof off and go down rabbit holes. And I don't know how to make it work on okay, I need to tap in and take care of my daughter for a full day. I kind of lose it. It's hard to get back to. And so, yeah, I don't know what that looks like. But if I spend the next 10 years and I kind of break even, hack a living, but I spend abundant time with my daughter and like work is kind of like, that'll be great. I'll be more than happy. That's what ambition looks like for me, to answer your question finally. Ambition is a full life. It's the full life. It is nothing to do with my work. It is the full expression of how I want to show up in my life. And like work is just one aspect of it. My whole goal is just to fund my life, to keep it going. Keep going this crazy, beautiful, self-employed dance I've been on for 8.5 years. That's it. Hopefully not touch my investments in retirement. Just keep letting that grow. That's my safety net. But like, just keep funding the journey. I don't have any grand ambitions. I don't need to own a home. I don't need a fancy life. I don't need fancy private schools for my kids. Just keep it going. And that's success. If I can spend a lot of time with my kids, I feel like that's going to be super fun, satisfying, and not something I'll regret when I'm older.
Yeah, that is your ambition, right? I mean, we use that word, I think, too often to just define like a career, but I think you very overtly have defined ambition for yourself, right? Which is creating this more holistic, maybe spontaneous, but maybe just more connected life for yourself, and living that, which is absolutely beautiful, and one of the messages I want more dads to hear as well. Can you talk to me a little bit about your newest book and how it relates, in fact, to having a family now?
Yeah. I feel like reading one passage from it would be the best way.
Please, by all means,
to bring this alive. So I pulled up the passage. So I had a really hard time with the word ambition, and the whole story is in the book. And this is related to like feeling joy and being able to celebrate myself and not feeling good about myself. And so I actually like got to a moment where I said in the mirror, I am ambitious. And it didn't blow up my life because I had paired ambition with the default path of success. And in my head, it's like, oh, if I'm ambitious, I'm going to end up in a cage again. But as I leaned into my own path, I learned to trust myself, became more comfortable with the uncertainty. I started to realize I was okay. And so this is what I wrote. I've come to understand that one of the most ambitious things we can do, following our own true path, does not feel like we might expect ambition to feel. It does not come with pain, contraction, or endless suffering. Instead, it feels light. It feels natural, as if everything you are meant to be doing is obvious. And all you need to do to be ambitious is simply follow this feeling and stay connected to it. Our culture will attempt to steal your inner ambition and convince you to use it to do what organizations, your parents, or your manager might want. But this is not your ambition. Your ambition deserves more than a job title, salary, or brand name company. It is a fire that burns inside of you, not for a bigger paycheck, but a bigger life. Your mission is to make sure that this flame never dies.
I love it. And how do you, as you read that, how do you think about your relationship to your daughter and your family, particularly as you, like, I'm imagining you looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, like, I am ambitious. And I would imagine something in the back of your head thinking about your family in that context. So can you clarify that a little bit?
I think when you are ambitious, you don't need the word. You don't need the reminder, right? It really is this lightness and this fire at the same time. There's a lightness in the sense that there's nothing to be done, right? I am very like Taoist in how I approach these things. Everything that's meant to be done will be done, right? And so it really is tied to all these things, connection, emotion. And if I have this feeling like I need to escape my present situation, that's when I know I'm unaligned and things aren't feeling light, right? And I'm aiming at something, right? I really do have this faith that if I am doing the things I'm meant to be doing, things will be taken care of. That is very hard to convince somebody that is like convinced that their ambition is like becoming CEO of a company. Mm-hmm. But I'm typically not trying to communicate to those people. I'm trying to communicate to the people like you that are already engaging in this path, or the people that are like, oh, I love the language of this. This makes sense. This connects to how I'm seeing the world, right? So I don't want everyone to embrace this idea. But I do want to point out that how we think about ambition is so tied to these external markers of success. And all of that is almost completely worthless unless you have some sort of like inner peace and inner connection, right? So if I'm not connected to my daughter, if I'm not connected to myself, I can't connect to my work. If I can't connect to myself, I can't connect to my daughter. If I can't connect to myself, I can't connect to the world. I can't connect to my wife, right? So I have to connect to myself. And I have to be brutally honest with myself about what I really want and what I need. And if I can make peace with that, I can show up with lightness. So the entire day today, spending the day with my daughter, there's no like, oh, I want to be writing. Now, I do enjoy writing. If I don't write for too long, I lose the connection to myself. So the ideal setup for my life is not full-time parenting right now. Though an interesting question would be, if somebody gave me $1 million, what would I do? I think purely writing books is all I would do. And I'd probably stop doing most other stuff. So there is a money and reality component to this, but I've got it pretty close down to like what I really want to be doing.
Do you also feel like, I know for me at least, that I notice some of my priorities and goals obviously shift as, my family grew from no children to 1 to 2, as financial needs come and go. How has that felt for you, and particularly in the context of this definition of ambition, but also in how you're leading your life day to day?
Yeah, I think for me, it's detachment from the stories, right? That external story of ambition is always far off in the future and disconnected from you, right? Publishing a book, right? Oh, I want to be an author. This is not an ambition I care about. An ambition I care about is I want to be somebody that writes a lot because I like writing and it seems to make my life better. And so I focus on the day to day. And I try to just like write a little every day. And so to answer your question, I shift based on like what's happening, right? If I needed to make money, I would just start making moves in that direction. But I'm always just reacting to circumstances. I'm not tied to like a way things need to be, or like even how I need to be spending my time. Like Angie's father has been staying with us for the last 4 months. And I don't know if you've spent extended time with in-laws, but everyone's situation is different. But man, my daughter loves her grandfather. Man, it is great. She loves him. He loves her. Like, man, they're like best friends. And so what happened is like, she like lost interest in her parents a little bit. And so it was a little challenging for me. I was like, I felt really guilty, but like in Asian culture, like taking care of the kids is like a huge, like the greatest thing ever. And so like it was really weird for me because like I felt guilty because like that's not an American thing to like fully taking care of the kids. And so I also felt like like I want Michelle to want me a little more. But like it's great. Like if anyone loves your kids as much as the parents, it's the grandparents. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go start writing another book. That's the most ambitious thing I can do right now because my daughter's needs are taken care of, and I feel really good about it.
I love that. I would have many different, probably not appropriate stories for living with my in-laws. But
everyone has different situations, and there can be triggers coming from many different directions.
Oh, yes, there can be. But I did want to add that, my experience with kind of evolving goals and ambitions has been really eye-opening for me, because for me, I have noticed like a maturity around it where for a long time, I was actually like actively averse to the idea of making money through the work that I love, because I felt that if I pursued that directly, it was going to be either a decoupling or a complete like devolvement from my values. But what I have realized, particularly over the last couple of years, is I have built a life around my values in such a way that because it comes and goes, but when I feel particularly ambitious from a work perspective, I don't need to feel guilty about it or worry about it, because I have built this system, like this life that I know is not going to let me become overwhelmed by it, which I think would have happened in another context, right? If I had a more traditional path. What I had wanted to ask you in particular, for instance, while you were talking about this, is like, I love the idea of the work that I'm doing impacting more and more fathers. And that is a little bit connected to money, but it's connected to this idea like, wow, if we can get like 1 million dads really like connecting more deeply with their own emotions and understanding how to create more community for themselves, like, wouldn't that be amazing? Your writing, you say you do it for you, but you also are doing it in creating community and by extension impact. Is that a driver for you, or is it really truly just like internally focused?
Yeah, I think different people have different relationships with goals. Goals don't do much for me. And sometimes they undermine me being interested. Like the idea of getting 1 million people to do anything, that is just like, I don't know. It just doesn't do anything for me. But I love the one-on-one. I love the one-on-one. I think it all comes back to like conversation connection. I love like the way I write, I think is very authentic and true. Like I don't bullshit. It's very real. It's very true. And I end up connecting or attracting almost entirely the same kind of people. And these people are awesome. And so I think early on, what I was really trying to do with my writing is like find other people so I felt better about myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have like tons of people. I've like solved that problem. But again, it's just staying close to the day by day. And so I've slowly leaned into, I have a community now. I always wait for the invitation. I wait for a very clear sign that's the right time to do something. I've very slowly grown that community. It's sort of like a break-even endeavor right now. But we have like a WhatsApp group with 100 people, and just feels right now. I love engaging with the people. We just put out a magazine as part of the group. That's like our first project. That was really fun. Feels good. I'm just taking it day by day. And I think two things is, one, I've learned to trust myself, right? If I was looking at you tell me all these things, you're worried about losing your values. I hear that and I'm like, Jeff, like, you're going to be fine. And you'd probably say the same thing to me. I still have fears of like turning my life into a job again and losing myself. Yeah. But you'd probably be like, Paul, that's ridiculous. I've read your writing for 7 years. You're a maniac. Like, you're going to be fine. But feeling that in your body, there's a lag, right? Your like sense of what is going to happen lags reality by years often. And so trusting that, and then also just knowing yourself, like aiming at making $1 million a year doesn't inspire me. Like I won't work anymore for that. And just experimenting as I go. One thing I've realized recently is just amping up the creativity level really motivates me. I get super pumped. That's why I did the Collective magazine. That was really fun. And getting to do it with other people. I don't know where that goes. I think everything in my path is, if there's an unknown element, I'm going to be more excited. So I love trying weird things, doing new things, moving in interesting directions. And so one of the things I decided to do with the Pathless Path is publish like a premium luxury art edition hardcover of the book. It's going to be printed in Italy, cloth cover, hand-drawn like Japanese-inspired illustrations. And it's just going to be absolutely beautiful. And it's such a delight creating it. And it's a bold bet. I spent about 60 grand on it up front, not even getting pre-sales. And it's just like, you know what? That's 60 grand out of the money I've earned from my book, which has been more than I ever imagined. This is the way I want to live my life. This is really fun. Feel good about it. I feel excited, and I can move in that direction. And so that's been the big breakthrough for me, is leveling up the creativity.
It sounds like also making decisions again with real intention, which is means it's impossible to really regret. So that's awesome.
It's it's very hard too, I would add. Like in today's world with the creator economy and how people share their lives on social media, it's so easy to get hijacked by other people's desires and interests and wants, right? And so one of the things I've dealt with over the past couple of years is I've gotten drawn into like the author scene and seeing other successful entrepreneurs reach out to me. And I started feeling really bad about myself because I was judging myself against their worldviews, right? And so this is a very subtle thing. The people you engage with, you will feel their worldview. I don't know if I'm saying this exactly right. Like if I hang out with like Alex Hormozy, the most driven hustlepreneur out there, I'm going to start feeling the world as he sees it, right? And I'm going to start internalizing those kind of goals, and I'm going to start seeing myself as a failure, not good enough, right? And so I've been super intentional about the people I surround myself with, that like I want to get status from people that care about creativity and being intentional and like showing up in the world with love, kindness, connection, etc. And so how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so I apply that to my life, my relationships, my daughter, my creativity. And so I'm obsessively principled around making sure that's all aligned. And that is ambitious.
That makes 100%. That makes so much sense to me. I mean, the same rings true as a dad, right? I mean, if I surround myself with other dads that actually want to talk about fatherhood, want to talk about the things that they're worried about from the child perspective, that makes me more connected to this whole journey of being a dad. And so that
there's a lot of stuff out there too. It's like, oh, dad should just put their head down and grind for their family, right? And it's like, man, they need a hug.
We all could use an extra hug or two. Absolutely, that's true. And I mean, obviously, those aren't the dads that come to me, and I think there's a lot of dads in a similar vein to the way you wrestled with this external definition of success. They're wrestling with this idea of fatherhood. Like they don't like the definition that's been laid on their doorstep from like a historic perspective. And
it sucks. Like separate yourself from your kids at the most fun years possible and go earn a paycheck and like shut up about your emotions. It's dumb. It's stupid. We can be way more expansive, way more lively, and way more real. Like you can own how much you love your kids, want to be around them. Like, and I think there's a lot of that in our generation. I think we're very lucky compared to previous generations where you probably would get like divorced if you like were like, I want to spend more time with my kids or so it's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm super curious what it'll be like for my children to have a generation where their kids had their dad in the house, their whole like lives growing up. I mean, I work from home. I pick them up from school, all the things that I didn't experience with my father. And I'm just curious from a subtle level to a grandiose level, how that will show up in the way they adult and become parents and fathers and themselves. So it's really interesting and really, I'm really proud about it. I want to end with one final thing. We love to, highlight on the Ambitious Dads podcast that fatherhood and parenting is messy. So you must have one kind of ridiculous blowout diaper story or pee on your face or like something crazy that you can share with us just as a nice little reminder about how hard the life is in being a dad sometimes.
I mean, I feel like 2.5 years in, like all that stuff's just like not even that bad anymore. But like there are just so many blowouts. I was pooped on like 3 times in the first like 3 weeks. Poops in the tub, Yeah, but like that's normal, right? Like everyone experiences.
It is to us, right? As dads now, right?
But I think with one kid, you're sort of blank on these things. Like you are like wondering, like, is it normal for this to be happening? Them falling this much. But yeah, I think a lot of our challenges and crazy experiences are like traveling. We've taken a crazy number of flights with our daughter. I think one was her having like, she had a fever from like a tooth coming in as we were flying back from Barcelona, actually. And yeah, that was pretty terrible. But we survived.
You know, going back and forth between Spain and the US with my two boys, the first couple of years was super hard because neither were really old enough that they could absorb themselves in front of the television, which, by the way, the only time we are fully open.
Yeah, the first 2 years is really hard. Like they don't
they want to run around in the aisles, right? And that takes some serious like parenting bandwidth to manage that. And now they're super excited to fly because they know it's the only time daddy will say, yeah, you can watch literally Moana, or now it's K-pop Demon Hunters like 5 times in a row if you want to. That is totally appropriate. So I just flew to New York for a family wedding without the boys this week, and I was in coach class, and I thought it was the most first class flight I had ever been on. I'm like, there is no one around that needs me. I am just gonna it was amazing. It was absolutely. It is stunning how travel feels different with or without your kids, and it's super with them because they're like eyes wide open. I mean, everything's interesting. Like the wing of the airplane is interesting, and the crazy sound of the toilet flushing is interesting. But when you're by yourself now, it's a nice little gift. So
yeah, I need to write up like an age rating of flying. I think 13 to 20 months was definitely the hardest time to fly. I think we'll avoid that with the next kid, but.
Yeah, I think it depends on when the capacity to like really sit in front of a TV for a more indefinite period of time. I'd say it probably goes longer than like 20 months. I think they can't do that until closer to 3. So there's a lot of entertaining.
Yeah, we flew 16 hours from Houston to Taipei at 25 months, and she watched Moana 7 times. And we were like, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah. When we make it work, we make it work. Awesome. Paul, thank you so much. As always, you're super authentic when I speak with you. And I'm just glad that there's a lot of dads now that have the opportunity to hear you. And I'll put in the show notes how you can reach out to Paul. But you can always Google the Pathless Path. There's a lot of places where you will see and hear about his book and his amazing story and his blogging and your new book. Do you want to just like highlight that real quick, the name and where they can find it?
Oh, Good Work?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's like a year out now. Good Work, Reclaiming Your Inner Ambition. You can find it anywhere. Probably by the time this comes out too, I'm launching the pre-sale for the fancy edition of the Pathless Path. If you've read the book and were like, I want the sexiest book I own to be the Pathless Path, this will be the copy. But you can find that at pathlesspath.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Paul. And thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next time. Take it easy.
Buenas noches.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Ambitious Dads podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation and want more insights on balancing ambition and fatherhood, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upcoming episode. Check out the links in the description for our newsletter and more resources to help you live intentionally as a dad. See you in the next episode.